and the company that runs the terminals at the ports around Australia, particularly at Brisbane, Port Botany, Melbourne, and our own Fremantle. And there's been an escalation in this dispute over the last 24 hours. Paul Zalai, the Chief Executive of the industry group Freight and Trade Alliance, is on the line to talk to me about that now. Good morning, Paul.
Yeah, hi Sean, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Now this escalation of the dispute, it's a bit concerning, especially given I remember the dockside dispute of the 90s over here that caused all sorts of problems, and seeing this is giving me some PTSD. Can you tell us what's happened, what's changed, and what it means for our ports?
Yeah, Sean. And look, I also vividly remember the late 1990s with the Patrick dispute in Corrigan, and God help us, hopefully we don't get to that point. But look, the action that the Maritime Union has taken is legal action, protected industrial action. And look, I best describe it as like drip torture. So, it's designed to cause inconvenience and get the employer, I suppose, to respond. But it's not meant to be at the point where it has the devastating impacts that we're experiencing now around the country. I think the fact that the PIA, the Protected Industrial Action, has lasted so long is the problem. That the congestion at these terminals run by DP World, it's just got to the point now where it's causing significant delays and throwing out the international shipping schedules where they just don't have a level of predictability to be able to go around the country and meet their schedules for global trade.
So there's some significant cost involved here for industry and for trade. Can you tell us, just explain for our listeners exactly what the workers are doing at DP World sites?
Yeah, so look, the protected industrial action comes in various forms. It can be as simple as just refusing to do overtime, through to the non-servicing of trucks and trains for a period of time. So what we understand now, the latest move from DP World was they're going to dock the workers for a whole day's pay if they take any form of protected industrial action. So that looks as though it's going to perhaps bring things a bit more to a head. And like you said, hopefully it doesn't come to a lockout like what we have seen in the past. But I wouldn't rule it out. It is definitely a possibility.
So what's the flow-on effect to consumers here? Because that obviously things come in through our ports, and things come in through our ports go to consumers, and I imagine if there's extra cost for the stevedores or the stevedoring companies, then there's extra cost for consumers.
Look, there will be. Look, I think your listeners in WA are probably in a better position than around the rest of the country, actually. The East Coast has been more severely affected by this. To give you an idea, last Thursday we had some data from DP World. They had 51,000 containers stranded at their facilities around the country, but only about 1,800 of them were at the port of Fremantle. So still a significant number, but by comparison, Fremantle is doing pretty well, and it's a credit to the government-run port corporation there and the other stevedores there that are working well to actually try and minimise that issue. But if it does escalate, and if we do get a lockout, then there's going to be severe pain felt everywhere. The other big issue, you're talking about the impacts on consumers. There's lack of predictability now in vessel scheduling, and bear in mind, Fremantle's not immune to this either. We're seeing a lot of vessels even bypassing Fremantle altogether and going to Adelaide, for example, and then importers have got to wait to get the freight moved back across to WA. But if we get the situation where we get the lockout, it's going to have devastating impacts. And importers are going to get to the point now where they won't be able to rely on their just-in-time inventories. They're going to have stock well in advance to be able to cope with this. Bearing in mind, the other stevedores around the country face similar enterprise bargaining arrangements at the end of 2025. So this could be an entree for a lot more. If my prediction is right, that importers do stockpile more onshore, that's going to test our warehousing capabilities around the country, and again will come at a significant additional cost. And I hate to say it, but it will just add to the inflationary pressures, cost of living, all the cliches that we're hearing. But it's so true, and this is going to be a big part of it.
Can you give us an idea of the nature of the added costs, Paul? Because, it might not be easy for everyone to get their head around what costs a couple of delays might have. If your gear sits on the wharf for another week, what's the difference if it's furniture? But, of course, if it was, I don't know, you wouldn't ship ice cream in, but if it was ice cream, it gives you an idea that's not going to keep for a week on the wharf. Is perishability the main added cost, or are there others?
Perishables obviously is a big one, but in the example that I gave, where a vessel bypasses Fremantle to trying to meet with their international schedules, then there's a significant cost there. It might take another few weeks for that container to be shipped back to WA, or the importer may determine to make the movement themselves, either by rail or road, to get the freight back to the destination in WA. So you've got an obvious cost there, but the other factor is as well, as I said, the move away from just-in-time inventories. A lot of importers now have to meet their contracts. If you're a supplier of retail, for example, to one of the big providers, you might now be resorting to air freight, which again comes at a much higher cost. And it just blows out the whole traditional supply chain models that we've got used to. COVID was bad enough, but what we're experiencing here now is starting to make our difficulties that we experienced in COVID look pretty good. At least we had the workers doing their best at the time now. And again, I don't want to be union bashing. I don't want to side with the union or the employer, but we definitely need intervention, because we just can't go on like this.
Well, what's the state of play with the negotiations? Can you give us the numbers here? What have you offered, or what has industry offered? What has the union asked for, and what's been rejected?
Okay, so from what I understand, the workers are looking for an 8% increase year on year for the next 3 years, also a higher superannuation contribution, and that's just a part of what I understand is about 300 claims put forward by the unions for improved pay and conditions. Again, whether that's warranted or not, I'll leave that for others to comment on. But DP World are playing hardball on this, and they, well, as their CEO said, if you want to take protected industrial action and you don't want to work as per your job description, well, don't bother coming to work.
So the unions asked for 8% year on year for the next 3 years. Has DP World made an offer? Has it counted?
Look, I understand that they have, but again, I'm not across the full detail of that. But I think there has been some level of bargaining in the process, and where they said, well, I don't know. And this is where, look, I really do think this is where the Fair Work Commission needs to come into it. We're just going to have a stalemate here. I can just see it. And this is where we need an independent referee just to come in, have a look at it, and just sort this out. Because meanwhile, while the employer and the worker are in dispute, it's the rest of the country that's suffering.
Yeah, because I imagine there wouldn't be anyone who would begrudge a union of any kind from taking protected industrial action during a negotiating period.
Look, again, with everything, unions have a vital role to play. But it's again, I think whether it's the union or whether it's the employer, if either party gets too much power, that's not a good thing. There is a place for the bargaining. But I think what this episode has exposed is that the current workplace relations legislation, it doesn't work. We can't have protected industrial action go on for months. Potentially, this could go through till June this year before the Fair Work Commission is forced to intervene. DP World have said, and I believe them, it would take them, even if the workers went back full-time tomorrow, it would take them another 8 weeks to recover from the backlog. So at best, even if we get a resolution overnight, we're still in a world of pain for the next couple of months. So something needs to give. We need an immediate solution to the current problem, but we also need some longer-term reform that's going to give us a level of comfort that we can actually open our borders. So the government is so proud, and justifiably, that they've got free trade agreements happening left, right and centre. They've got more trade liberalisation measures. They've got a better relationship now with China, so that's opening up trade. That is all absolutely wonderful, but it counts for bugger all if you can't get a container on or off a ship.
Paul, thanks very much for coming on and explaining that to our listeners.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate that.
Paul Zalai there. Now, Paul's the Chief Executive of the industry group Freight and Trade Alliance, and he was speaking after DP World announced it would dock workers a full shift's pay if they slowed down cargo with their